Hey guys, welcome back to History with Mrs. Lee. Today we're talking about our fourth president, James Madison. Now, something I had mentioned in class is that James Madison is easily confusable with number 5, James Monroe. So the way that I remember it is that Madison, M-A-D, is alphabetically before Monroe, M-O-N. You could also say that James Madison was probably pretty mad to be fighting the War of 1812 during his presidency. So let's jump right in with the causes of the War of 1812, and you can also go view the causes and effects video of the War of 1812 that I posted on YouTube earlier today. So, first big cause, the British were impressing U.S. sailors. Remember, impressment means to kidnap and force the person to be part of your military. So America's not okay with this. Britain also interfered with our trade. We were trading with France at the time, but anytime an American ship would end up in a French harbor, British ships would go ahead and take over the American ships, along with all of our merchandise that we were trying to sell to France, so we don't make any money off of it. The third major cause is that British were giving weapons to Native Americans in the Northwest Territory to try to keep Americans out of Canada. Now, speaking of Canada, we have a group of guys during this time period. These Americans were called the War Hawks, and these men supported the War of 1812 mostly because they were land hungry and nationalistic. They wanted to gain more land in Canada to add to the United States. All right, well, slow mail, lots of problems, because Britain at the time was already fighting a war with France. So Britain says, you know what, maybe we should just leave the Americans alone. And before that letter can arrive to America that they're going to stop impressing our sailors and taking our ships, America's already decided to go to war. And Britain says, okay, I guess we're going to fight too. During this war, we get the StarSpangled Banner. An American named Francis Scott Key was stuck on a British ship outside of Fort McHenry in Maryland, and he witnesses the British completely bombarding this American Fort McHenry, and he really thinks that there's no way that America can win this battle. When he wakes up in the next morning, he sees that the American flag is still high, waving over the fort. And so he writes the Star-Spangled Banner, a poem, which then gets turned into a song, and it becomes our national anthem in 1931. Okay? Well, at the end of 1914, the Treaty of Ghent was signed, and this officially ended the War of 1812. But slow mail is back, and it takes 2 months for news to travel to America, specifically down to New Orleans in Louisiana. So, the Battle of New Orleans was fought in January of 1815, and it was a completely unnecessary battle because the Treaty of Ghent had already been signed. But the British and the Americans down in Louisiana had no clue. Andrew Jackson, though, becomes a war hero. He was completely outnumbered by the British. However, the British suffered over 2,000 casualties, and the Americans suffered less than 80. This leads to extreme nationalism and very proud Americans saying, look, you guys had more people than us, and we still took you down, Britain. Now, the majority of the time when people talk about the War of 1812, they are most concerned about the effects of the War of 1812, and there are 3. First off, we are going to see increased nationalism. Lots of Americans are going to be walking around in 1815 saying, woohoo, America's great, we're awesome. Next, the Native American tribes had kind of disbanded from helping each other out to stop Americans from moving west, and so since the Native American resistance is now weakened, we are able to expand westward much easier. So lots of people are going to start getting in those covered wagons and moving on west. But the most important effect of the War of 1812 right here, increased U.S. manufacturing and transportation. So at the time period, we were getting a lot of our goods, like our clothes, our furniture, weapons, other manufactured goods that you would like to have in your home from places like England, from France, and from Spain. Well, we weren't trading with England at the time, obviously, because we're fighting a war against them, and they stopped us from trading with countries like France and Spain because they were constantly taking our ships and our supplies to sell. So if I can't get my stuff from European countries, I'm eventually just going to have to learn how to make it myself. And now, of course, you're going to have some people sitting in their homes and learning how to make their own clothes or make their own furniture, etc. But this is going to eventually lead to the Industrial Revolution because people are going to realize I can produce a whole lot of clothes. I can produce more than just one table. I can produce tons of tables. I can produce more than just one gun. I can produce tons of guns if we build factories. And so the War of 1812 is going to have a huge impact on the creation of the Industrial Revolution here in America.